Hello and welcome. My name is Roger Farrell. Farrell is spelled capital F-A-R-R-E-L-L, but just call me Roger. That's fine. I've been around the world a long time and will continue to be here for quite some time. And during my lifetime, I've learned a lot. And I've helped a lot of people because I have some ability to understand what is going on with people when they have an ailment, and it's considered a physical problem, and I deal with it as a mental problem, and I can explain this a little later. So anyway, I have written 3 books. One book has to do with helping people quit smoking, which is very difficult. If you were never a smoker, you don't know how agonizing it is for a smoker to try to quit. The cravings. A smoker throws a cigarette away and says, that's my last cigarette. Within 30 minutes of craving is hit, give me a smoke, Mr. or Mrs., give me a smoke. So I discovered a method of how to overcome cravings, how to kill them. And another discovery I made was how never to smoke again, to change the system in the body's mind. So it never ever wants to have another cigarette. So those are 2 benefits. Also in my method for how to quit, which tells my story of my own doing that. There's also methods that help an alcoholic quit drinking, and there's an affirmation that covers that, so they just follow my same system for smokers, but use a different affirmation. The same with drug users. Use my method for smokers, and there's a different affirmation. Affirmations are mantras. We repeat for a period of 20-30 days, several times a day. And when we do it several times a day, I don't mean we just do it once and sometime later we say it again. No, we say it for about 30 times, and later we say it for another 30 times, and later another 30 times. We have to put it into our mind, because it's our mind that makes us smoke, not nicotine. That is so far gone out the tube, out the window. It is not nicotine. When I quit the first time, cold turkey, because the boss changed rules and wouldn't allow people smoking a lot in the lunchroom, I didn't want to be like the others, sneaking into the washroom to have a smoke. So I quit. I decided I'm quitting. And my story tells you how I went about it. So after quitting, about 3 years later, I started smoking again because I was at a stag. Everybody's smoking. So I said, give me a cigarette. Hey, an hour later to another one, give me a cigarette. 3 smokes that evening, and the next morning I was back to being a smoker again. After all the work I did to quit smoking, I was back being a smoker again. But eventually, I came up with a method to stop my smoking. And that method is a discovery of how to kill cravings. And the other discovery I made was how to prevent us from ever wanting to smoke again in the future. So many years ago when I quit, I've never ever had the urge to smoke. Also in the book is a bonus for people to learn how to quit sweets. And when you learn how to quit sweets, I'll tell you, within not too many days, you can walk past a donut shop and not even want to go in. You're so unwanting sweets. It's amazing. And my method is also included in the book. Now, books 2 and 3 are called Witness to Health-Changing Attitudes. Oh, by the way, on my Stop Smoking book, it says stop smoking, capital letter N, stay stopped. Not the word A-N-D, but capital letter N. Stop smoking and stay stopped. It's available on Amazon. It's helped a lot of people. Before I wrote the book, for years I've told people how to quit. And they did, and successfully, and they never were smokers again. The books 2 and 3 are called Witness to Health-Changing Attitudes. They both have the same title. One is Volume 1 and the other one is Volume 2, because they are true stories of people who had ailments, and I give them advice of how to remove the ailments, which they did. When they followed my advice, their ailments disappeared. I've helped hundreds over the years. And so I will, and I do have a 4th book I'm writing. For quite some time I held seminars. And in those seminars, I helped people in the audience to improve their life and improve their health. And those that had symptoms or ailments, I give them methods of how to remove those ailments, which they did. When they've practiced what I told them, they successfully healed, corrected their problem. Yeah. But I quit doing seminars when the virus came around. Anyway, in those 2 books, the first book is that the publisher's being worked on and will become published in a while. Second book is already written and will, after the first book of Witness, we call the books, after the first volume Witness, I will put the second volume out for a publisher to print up. But in those books, they contain the true stories of people I came across during my working hours or some social hours. And in those periods of time, I help people learn how to make changes with their thinking. You see, when people have an opinion, we're made up of opinion holders. We have a lot of opinions. So when we have an opinion and we hold that opinion, it eventually becomes what we call an attitude. Attitudes are kind of rigid in their way of operating. Now, attitudes can be positive or they can be negative. Like a negative one is, to make money, I got to work hard. So we put that image and saying into our mind and into our subconscious. So the system of our mental thinking is, the only way I can make money is to work hard, which of course is nonsense. Look at people who create things. They come up with inventions, they come up with methods, and they can make millions. Anybody can, if they get the idea out of their head that they are stifled or they can't do it. So that's part of the motivational speeches I give in seminars. So when I write the book that I'm my fourth book, I will be explaining and describing and advising items that I told people in the audience to do when I was doing seminars. So the book will be the seminar and some title that'll go along with that. Now about health. Well, health is ours. It's natural. Pain is not natural. Poor health is not natural. Ailments are not natural. When I was a little kid, my mother told me that we all have a shield around us, like the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur's knights. With that armor they have themselves inside. And that shield protects us from viruses, from negative thinking, from many, many unwanted items that can come our way. But if we open a little section and let something in, then we're the ones that invited us into it. For instance, an ailment doesn't sit up in the branch of a tree, and when somebody walks under it, drops down onto your shoulder and slithers down into some organ and give them a kidney problem or a liver problem or a stomach problem. That's not how it happens. It has to be invited in. And what will invite it in is the kind of opinion we have. If we have a negative opinion, a negative attitude, if we feel vulnerable, we open ourselves to diseases. But if we feel always healthy, I can count on my body to know that its health is always there, that it will always be healthy. We do not then need to take any pills to fight some ailment. But there are ways to, if a person does have an ailment, there are methods to take care of that. And I include those methods in those books, the second and third books of the Witness to Health-Changing Attitudes. Okay? So I'm going to tell you a story that explains or connects my comments to prove up that it's the mind that produces the ailment, not the body. Body has nothing to do with it. Listen, if we're at the Walt Disney World of swimming pools and slides and so on, and where you go up, climb up onto that slide, that water slide, zips you down into the pool below. What is the thrill doing? What gets the thrill? Is it the body? Not at all. It's not the body. It's the mind. It's the mind that's thrilled. When you jump down onto the slide and zoom down and get sprayed with water and splash into the pool, what was the excitement the body had? None. It had to put up with it, that's all. It's the mind that enjoyed the excitement. Know this, it's the mind that brings about ailments. I can't say it's only the mind, or I can't say that all the ailments come around by the mind, because that would be hard to prove. But I'll tell you this, the people I came across with ailments who followed what I told them to do, cured themselves, healed themselves, corrected their problem, removed their problem, and within days, not months or weeks, or well, maybe some weeks in some cases, if it's somebody who feels depressed or has a split personality. But if somebody has a bladder problem, kidney problem, or whatever, the healing or the correction or the removal of the problem can be very quick. And I can tell you stories, which I will from time to time, of people I dealt with and how I told them what to do and what they did and how they healed themselves. I wasn't a healer. I'm not a healer. I help people understand how they can heal themselves. But I have a story. It's in one of my books, volume 2, I think. It has to do with before I go to that, we'll stick with this. Victoria is the person I'm thinking of. She's about 50 years old. She did bookkeeping at her husband's lumber yard. And I dealt with them because I had the renovating business, my business. It still is my business of buying property, improving it, and selling it for a profit. So that's how I earn my money throughout my life, among other things, because I'm an entrepreneur, so I jumped into many things. I started out in life as being a TV technician, because back then TVs didn't last long as far as their health went. They'd break down at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. But that's not the case anymore. So anyway, the story about Victoria is this. I come by to her office to pay for my past due invoice because I bought lumber from their business. And in doing that, I got to talk to Victoria now and then. And this one trip, I'm paying her my check, and I'm talking about a week or 2 later that I'm going to come back and pay the next check or the next invoice. And she said, "Oh, I'm not going to be here." I said, "Oh, you're finally taking a vacation, are you, Victoria?" She said, No, I can't do that. I can't leave this job. I can't leave for a day. Everything just piles up. So I can't take vacations. So she tells me, though, she's going in to be checked for lung cancer. Oh my God, is that ever awful? So I can't think of why would she have lung cancer? When the phone rings, she picks it up and talks to the customer, and while she's doing that, a vision suddenly pops into my mind. It's a vision of a castle or a dungeon, and chains are hanging from the wall, stone wall, and there's a big table, thick wood, and on it is laying a man naked. His hands are tied down, his feet are tied down, and lying across his chest are 2 flat stones, river stones. You know, stones about this big and about that thick or thinner. 2 stones. And on the other side of him, is a big man who's holding another stone. He's going to put it on the man's chest. In other words, he's making the man suffocate to death. When Victoria hangs up, comes back to me, I talk for a moment and then I say, "Victoria, I've got to tell you, this job is suffocating you." She said, "What?" I said, "This job is suffocating you." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Did you work somewhere else before you came here?" She said, "Yes." I said, "What did you do?" She said, "I was a dress designer." "A dress designer?" "Yeah." I said, "Did you work in one of those buildings down Spadina Road or Spadina Avenue in Toronto?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Did you like it?" She said, "I loved it. I really loved it." And I'm saying, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Victoria, you should really quit here and go back to that type of job. She says, I can't do that. I said, why not? She says, it's a wife's job to support her husband. This is my husband's business, and I've got to help. I said, it's going to kill, and then I had to change my wording. It's going to cause you health problems like you've got right now. She said, I can't change it. I've got to do this work. Nobody else can do it. My son's 21. He can do a little bit of it, but that's nothing compared to what I do here. So anyway, when I leave her, I go down to see her husband, and I ask him, did Victoria smoke at some time? Or does she smoke? He said, no, but now that she's got this problem, people keep asking me if she smoked, but she never did. So I left and went back to my usual business, busy days, working from the morning till night, because basically I'm a workaholic, so that's a secret, okay? I put in days and I put in nights. In fact, these books I wrote were written between 10 at night and 12 or 1 in the morning, because I had no time during the day to do any writing. And that book of Stop Smoking, I wrote it recently, but I've given out that advice in pamphlets to friends and acquaintances over the years, and they had great results. So I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, some weeks later, I want to visit Victoria, but I have to go to the hospital to see her. And when I go there, there's probably 20, 25 people waiting to get to see her. I thought, oh my God. So I leave and come back another day really early. And still there's a couple that follow me in through the door, and I have to say, listen, I'm going to have a private talk here. Can you leave us alone? And I usher them out and close the door. I have an envelope and I place it on the counter, and I tell Victoria, or on her side table, and I tell her, I'm going to tell you about this, what's in the envelope, because I think you may need to read it. But anyway, let's talk about your situation. And I standing by her bed, and I hold her left hand, and it's cold. I think her blood circulation is horrible. And she looks so frail. I mean, I only saw her a few weeks earlier, and she didn't look near as serious as she now looks. So that's so fast. And sometimes that happens because once a person is told what they got, what disease they got or ailment, it gives it more life. It comes on quicker. I mean, I've talked to the doctors. I have no doctor, by the way. I don't keep a doctor. Even though in Ontario and Canada we have free medical system, I do not need a doctor. I just don't get sick. I don't have accidents. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought there. So anyway, I talk to Victoria and I say, I want you to do an exercise, a mental exercise. It's what we call visualizing. It's how we turn affirmations into visions as if they're really happening, really occurring. I want you, Victoria, to imagine for 15 minutes, a few times a day, that you are at Spadina Avenue, and you are dress designing. You've got a pattern there, you cut out material, you're sewing it, and you put it on a dummy or whatever you call those model forms. You put it on there, and then you jump around so happy. That was good. Okay, and when you finish doing that, you can tell yourself, you're back now, that's done, That's the way it is. And then you get back to some of your own thinking or tasks. But you do that while you're lying here. You really, really project yourself to that factory, to that job site, to that material that you're working with. And imagine you're doing it. And when you finish doing it, enjoy your creation. Can you do this, Victoria? She said, yeah. You should, yes. Well, I want you to. And in this envelope I'm giving you is an exercise that's on 3 pages. I call it separating the body from the mind. See, the body follows the mind's thinking. It fulfills what the mind's thinking. If the mind is thinking resentment, then the body's going to create stomach cancer, for instance. Let me tell you, dear listener or viewer, that we are made up of many attitudes. And those attitudes do not cover are not blanket attitudes. They are attitudes specific to an area of the body. That's how I can tell when somebody has an ailment. I don't need the name of it. I just need to know where is it located. And wherever it's located in the body tells me what attitude that person is conducting through his mind. And then that tells me what I've got to explain to the person, tell him how to change his thinking and get rid of that so-called negative attitude. Now, also in one of my visits to Victoria, I got to talking about plants and the cells that make up plants. And in that discussion I said, I know you have plants at your office. I've seen them. They're very healthy. I said, do you ever talk to them? She said, yes, of course I do. She said, I even sing to them. I said, what do you sing? She said, nursery rhymes. So I said, that's good. So plants are made up of cells, plant cells. So type of cells that are in the leaves, cells that are in the stem, and so on. So is the body is made up of cells. We call it a body. Well, it's a body of cells. And those cells, like your plant cells, listen. Your body cells listen. That's why if somebody is talking to their cells with a negative attitude, a complaint going on and on and on, day after day after day, the cells say, oh, that must be what the man or woman wants me to do, my man, my woman. So I better give them that. I better give them colon cancer or ovarian cancer or asthma. You know, it doesn't have to be a cancer. It can be anything. Okay? But I'll tell you this. Each of those symptoms are located in a certain part of the body. And it's that part of the body that relates to one attitude. There are a couple of areas that have more than one, maybe 2. But usually, each area of the body has an attitude specific to it. The attitude that is related to the kidney is not the same type of attitude that's related to the stomach or to the colon. Each of those are different attitudes. So, for instance, let's say the skin, which is known to be our largest organ. There's an attitude relative to the skin. So when a person has acne, or shingles at the extreme, that's not 2 different attitudes. It's one attitude. It's one attitude that deals with the skin. All the skin has one attitude that I found out. I don't know if there's more than one, I found one. See, so if somebody has a skin problem, I deal with that attitude that they are promoting for themselves and their unhealthiness and get them to change that. So I don't care about the attitude for the kidney or the heart or anything. I deal with the attitude that is prominent at the time. Now let me tell you how I differ from doctors. I'm going to give you an analogy, an invented story. Okay, there are peanuts on the driveway, on the asphalt driveway. And I'll call those peanuts the source. And a squirrel comes along and nibbles on the peanuts. Gobble, gobble. Oh, that's so good. And we'll call the squirrel, poor thing, cancer. Now, a doctor comes along and he deals with the cancer, the squirrel, removes it. But he does not touch the source, doesn't even know about the source because it's invisible. The sources for ailments are invisible. So that allows another squirrel to come along and eat some more peanuts. Another cancer problem for the same person. Okay? So doctors deal with the cancer of the squirrel. I deal with the source. I remove the peanuts, the source, and there's no more squirrels. There's no more cancer. There's no more having to cut open their stomach or their intestine or whatever. It's gone, healed, because the source is the cause. All right, we'll talk later. Again, thank you for hearing me out. I wish you all the best. Bye-bye now. I like to add a PS to the foregoing. 2 weeks after Victoria was home from the hospital, I called her and asked her how she's doing, and she says, fabulous, fabulous. And she's so happy. Of course. Who wants to be laying around in a hospital bed at the point of almost dying when I saw her? So I want to mention that 3 weeks after that, her cancer was totally gone. So that points out what I said at the very beginning. It's the mind that brings around ailments, and it's the mind that has to get rid of the ailments. That's what we do. Some of us. That's it. And I did give her an exercise that she didn't have to do, which I give to people when they really have trouble getting their type of attitude corrected. It's a 3-page instructions guidance to separate the body from the mind. Now you can't really do that, but mentally you can imagine that that's what you're doing, and it's a very effective exercise and available if you'd like to have a copy. Okay, which by the way, I get a lot of mail, a lot. People with questions, people with comments. If they're brief and short, I can handle it. The other item I want to mention is my Stop Smoking book. Stop Smoking and Stay Stopped is available on Amazon. Yeah, so in 5 weeks from the 2-week period I'm talking about. Victoria ended up working at her old factory that she worked at before, in her old factory, making dresses, and happy. So this foregoing, or this information, and that's contained in this discussion of mine, I'll call it Changing Attitudes Segment 1, because I expect to make some more segments and some more comments and stories about people's ailments and how they healed themselves, along with other things. I've taught people how to change their beliefs. I've taught people how to change their habits. I've helped a lot of people. So I got a lot to say. And also, if I didn't mention, but I think I did, I was going to say the First Nation people consider me based on what information I have within this head of mine, and they honor me as an what do we call them? Elder. As an elder. That's quite a honor. So we'll talk to you again. Thank you for visiting, and wish you all the best. Bye-bye.